I'd like to welcome you all to the conference, basically from myself and Alan Gray, the two founders of our 12D Solutions, or co-founders, and our welcome event sponsors, CR Kennedy. Our media partners, Position Magazine and Spatial Source. And all our delegates, and you can see we've got a wide range of places. People are allowed to sit down in the front seats. We don't bite, so now you know how many are going to be here. Anytime, just come down the front. So yes, Abu Dhabi, America, Jordan, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, South Korea, Thailand, Togo and the UK, plus various places all around Australia. So we've got some people from every state in Australia. Our staff here, most of our staff you'll know, and our resellers are in white shirts, so you can tell them apart with 12D logos on them. And from our head office, we've got Dale, Lauren, Lisa, Vicky and Megan, and you'll see them out the front helping you come on in. Then we've got a lot of our software people are here, not all of them, but some. We've got Adam and Andrew, Alan, Ben, Blake and Jeff, Han, Mick, Richard, Rob, Tony and Tom. So you'll see some of them speaking or just around the place. So any questions you have, just get stuck into them and ask them things about the software. We've got most of our Queensland team here. We've got David, Debbie, who does a lot of the sales for you, Lincoln, Owen, Paul, Peter, Tate, Therese and Tim. New South Wales, South Australian ACT is looked after by EXDS. And so we have Joel A, which is Allsop, because we've now got two Joels, Mark, Michael, Rod and Tony. The international, Graham looks after all the international people, Graham Worth, and Joel and myself, and Mark Pointer's here and Darryl from the UK. From Victoria and Tasmania, we've got Matt Stevens and Soon Tay, and WA, we've got Alistair, Maria and Mary Lou's also here. New Zealand, our little friends from across the Tasman, they've got a good roll up here. In fact, there's about 62 people here from New Zealand, plus Lane's team. So there's Anne, Carolyn, two Charlies there, Charlie Dixon and Charlie L, Dylan, James, Lane and Ron. And we have a couple of people here from Jordan, Iraq, Abir and Makram, and from South Korea, Mr. Kim, and from Thailand, Rajit and Nopadol. Now the structure of the conference, it actually has three distinct sections. There's the combined one, which we're more or less in the combined room now. We also have the Birds of a Feather stream and also the exhibition area. So the combined sessions are always in this particular room here. It's the only one that will hold everybody. So that's where we are, the Boulevard Auditorium. And the Birds of a Feather, that's where we've split out into four different streams where we're just going to be very particular in going things in that area. So it's specialty type areas where you can talking to people of the same sort, so Birds of a Feather. So we've got the design room, which is in here. We then have the survey one, which is in B1, and Three Waters in B2, and 12D Synergy in B3. There was a bit of a change on the program, B1 and B2, they've been swapped around who's in them. But they're all labelled out there so you'll find them fairly easily. So the Birds of Feather room, they're just outside. We're congregating B1, B2 and B3. They're next to each other. 3 bananas here, not 2. The exhibition booths out in that area where you're congregating, there's a number of people out there. AECOM, BRICSCAT are there, CR Kennedy, Global POS, Matt Monk's got a stand out there, Position Partners, Position Magazine, UPG and SciTech. Transoft here from Canada first time with AutoTurn, and then we have various stands out there for you. And so again, they're out in that boulevard area. So the idea is at lunchtime, morning tea, afternoon tea, you can just wander around and talk to the various people there. So you can congregate out there. You can see that's a daytime photo. That was our last conference. And these sessions themselves, usually the first one in the morning's in here. It's a combined one. We're all together. They'll have a lot of speakers talking about industry things and their programs, how they're using 12D model and 12D synergy. Then for session 2 and 3, which are the ones before lunch and after lunch, they're the Birds of a Feather, where we break out in those other rooms. And then for the combined session for session 4, after afternoon tea, back in here again. And that's repeated each day. So morning tea and lunch and afternoon teas are all out in the Boulevard foyer, which is where the exhibition is, so that's right there near you. The welcome event, which is on tonight, That's where we get together and talk about how things are going. That's again outside there in the Boulevard foyer. And it's been known people have consumed alcohol there. So you're welcome to come along, have some drinks and some finger food and bits and pieces to start mingling and talking and picking on the programmers. Tomorrow we have Dr. Alan Duffy here in this room as our special guest speaker. Now he's a research fellow at Swinburne Uni, so he knows all the things about gravity waves and Higgs bosons and universes on supercomputers and whatever. So think up all your questions to ask him. So he's here to answer anything you want to know in those sorts of areas. And after that we'll have the conference dinner, and it's actually down in the Boulevard room, which is just the other end of where we are. So everything's happening on this one floor. So it's just down the end there. So there'll be tables there. There's only a couple of reserved ones, so you just pick and with your friends and things to be with them in the Boulevard room. At the very end, last time we did this, and it worked out quite well, there will be more Birds of a Feather sessions, question times in the Birds of a Feather, but what we always did at the end of the conference, we don't have afternoon tea on the last day, so that a lot of people have to catch planes and things, and so we go straight in here to our final session. And then afterwards, though, if people want to hang around, our people are there in the Birds of a Feather room to go and ask more questions. So none of them are going home on Tuesday night, so you can keep asking questions and they throw you out of here. Right, so we'll start in the conference proper. I'll just briefly mention the conference theme, which will come up time and time again. This time it's mining your data with 12D. And basically, it's all of our data in 12D model. People are now starting to realise it's all there. It's got a lot of information with it, with your super strings, your super alignments, your tins, your trimeshes, your drainage, sewer, water strings. It's all there in 3D with everything properly modelled. And you've got attributes in there for strings, vertices, segments, model and projects and so on. So you've got all the data to go with it. And what's happening now, people are starting to realise that and starting to use that then to go out to other applications and use it as they've never done before. I mean, we've only had attributes and things in there since about 1994, but bit by bit they're becoming much more useful, attributes, metadata, what they're called, and that's what now people are doing. You've got all your design, you've got all your survey in there, all these attributes, and you're starting to mine it and then use that data for other applications. And things like GIS, a lot of data is now being stored in GIS. And you'll see as we go through with our attribute manipulator, you can get virtually all our data into a form that can go into our GIS. E-plan, that's another one the surveyors will be discussing to do with cadastral plans. Again, it's putting data in there, not plots, anything like that. It's just mining the data you've got to put into E-plan. ADAX, another one, that's a BIM system. The same sort of thing, using your data directly. BIM, and we'll mention BIM a number of times. So that's what the whole idea of the theme is, just people using the data you've got, getting more and more out of it, and not having to go out elsewhere or produce plots and things like that, getting all you can out of the data you've got. So you'll see that's consistent right through most of the talks. They're using the data in a variety of ways. So they're mining information from that data you've got with 12D. And of course, Synergy itself, this is another one, although we're talking about 12D model, and I've got to get in the habit of saying 12D model, not just 12D, then we have 12D Synergy, which is a great way of bringing a lot of other data together as well. Not only does it look after your 12D model projects, but you can have your emails in there, you can have drawings in there, other documents. It's a data management system. So again, it allows you then to mine and pull data in from all those sorts of sources as well. So that's why I picked that particular theme, because we're at the stage now where everyone is starting to use their data more and more and get more out of it. Now, the 12D model highlights. We had the what's new, and so some of these are in there. But looking back at 12D model 11, after 10 it was going to be a small catch-up release. And we threw one or two new things crept into version 11. For example, we had trimeshes. They came out of the blue. For most people, they didn't realise we've been working on them for about 24 years, but trimeshes popped out in version 11. A total rework of the MTFs, which you've now all would have seen what's gone on there. Snippets on steroids for that version. BIM sort of came of age, tunnels and structures, Drainage.4d. and the integration with 12D Model and 12D Synergy. These things all happened in this version 11. And point clouds, dimensions, leaders, tables, plot sheets, to name a few things. ADAC started to be used with that, and E-Plan for New South Wales, Victoria and Queensland started with version 11. So the plans for 12, it'll be another small catch-up release, the same as version 11 was going to be. But I was counting the other day, and there's about 300 plus new things in version 12. So I suppose I can't really say it is a small catch-up version. We'll look some of them very quickly now. Some will be demonstrated in the Birds of a Feather sessions. Others will be described in the What's New in 12D Model 12. That's not totally finished, saying up to about 250 pages at the moment. So I haven't added all the drainage stuff and all the survey and things, just the general things. And some things won't be mentioned at all now, but you'll see some things during the conference that we haven't mentioned as yet. So, well, let's zoom in. I'm going to go flat out here to look at some of the things in version 12. And pointing out where some of them will actually be done in other sessions. First thing though, just for everybody, everyone complains about the help, us using WinHelp. The reason we continue using that is because the only one that will work on most systems. It's getting harder and harder. So what we've done for version 12, we can use PDF help. So the 12D Model Reference Manual was always there, and that's what the help is. And our programming language manual, they're now installed as PDFs. And basically we can now link into those for your help. So it's the one document. So basically, if you go to the macro manual, it comes up as a PDF help. But for 12D Model, the same, that's now there rather than the other one you used to see. It's our reference manual, it's always been there. It's only about 9,000 pages now. And the context-sensitive help, what that's all about, that's when you actually hit on the F1 key or hit on the help button. That's what took you into the WinHelp. Well, now if you do that, it's still there, but references to the 12D Model Reference Manual. So if you hit the help button, you'll get straight into the manual to that spot, to the PDF. And similarly with F1 key, most people mightn't realise that on any menus and also on panels, if you use the F1 key, most of the time there's something that it'll jump into. So the other help is still there, but the PDF one I think most people will start using instead. The good thing about the PDF is you can print from it, you can write things out easily, you can get big chunks of it, and you can just read through it rather than just page after page of a online type of context-sensitive help. A few bits and pieces. Autosave, that's been on the list for a little while. Basic with that, we've now got your defaults, the save timer. If you put a negative number in there, it becomes an autosave and does it automatically every, say, 5 minutes. We can pick in perspective OpenGL views. We always used to be able to do in perspective views. You could pick, you just didn't see it highlighting. That's also now working. And also in plan OpenGL views. And exaggeration works for perspective OpenGL views, where it didn't work for perspective, but not for the OpenGL ones. In the names.4d, we can group them, and there's an all in there. That was not there from before. So that was some of the things from 11 that you came forward with. And we can set attributes for a tin, rename a super tin, copy models and tins from folders. These are ones to get over the fact that if you've got data, you shouldn't use Windows Explorer ever to copy a model or a tin into our project. You will destroy our database. So there's options there. You could copy models and tins for projects, but then people brought things back from backups, were sent models, and how do we get it in there? So in this case, you can have it in a folder and it'll pick the models and tins and allow you to put them over, and we fix up the numbers we need that are in there, the UIDs, so things aren't duplicated. So that should make life a lot much better if you're trying to get data in from backups and things. We can explode symbols, dimensions, tables, trimeshes, you name it. You can zip up your 12D XML files. So a lot of these we did before. There's fairly simple ones. For section view properties, we were missing corridors and extend. So they're actually now in there. There's a start and end change on the interface function. And the start and end change, the smart change, we're starting to use them through more and more options. So rather than just taking a typed in change value, there's more these pick the end of a string automatically or take the end change, things like that. For those who've moved on to the network code meters, there is a report under there that actually allows you to see, if you hit on the report, it'll show you how many licenses are there and how many are being used. And if you fill in the report file itself, it'll actually get up a report on everyone on there. So we couldn't do that as easily with the Weeboo, but the CodeMeters allow a lot more information to come in. So they're sort of background sorts of things for people. You can find the boundary polygon of data. In this one, it's found it fairly well. That's a new thing in there. Big icons, high resolution screens, old eyes, tablets, all those sorts of things. Now you often need bigger icons, especially those high res screens. And so now you can actually set them, and there's two types. You can set them for the toolbars, and you can have a choice of 25%, 50%, 75%, all up to about 4 times as big. And you can separately for the icons on the views, because sometimes you don't want them both to be big. You may be able to see the ones on the view quite happily, so you can set them independently. Drag and drop. If the thing can't be dragged and dropped, it will now give you a message in the output window, so you're not thinking, oh, what's going on here, what's going on here? And we're just going through putting more and more drag and drops in there. So the programmers, as they find them, will start adding more in. CAD, whole lot of extra things on just straight CAD there for text, same as, rotate, copy things many times, rotate them. The same as works for a whole lot of the new things, the Trimeshes, dimensions and leaders. CAD tables, again, they were new in 11, so we've added a whole lot more things in there for different line styles, colours, merging, exploding. And one thing in there is you can create multiple tables from CSVs. This one means, because we just put up one table, in this case it's a function, so you can pick a CSV file, and basically then we'll break it up into a number of tables, or you say how wide and that you want them, and if you rerun it, it'll just take away the data and put the new stuff in like every good function. Leaders, they were new in 11, so we've done a lot more there about aligning with things and having string, vertex and segment attributes now can be in leaders. So if you've got an attribute you want to put a leader to, you can set it all up and away it goes. The dimensions, leaders and tables, the colour box works for them now, the global delete, the global rename, and there's a whole lot of macro calls for them. With these ones, because they're totally different, it's just like the Trimesh, a lot of the options where just work for all the strings, we've had to go through separately to do these ones. So if you find one of these options that doesn't work for these sorts of the dimension leaders, tables, or for Trimeshes, just let us know as we sort of go through adding them in. And this is a big one, dimension and leader overrides. What this is, if you've used all these things, you realise there was a style, but if you just want to change the colour in that style, you had to create a new style. What you can do now is you can say, right, for quite a few things there, yes, I'm going to use that style, but put in a different colour. And there's a whole lot of these you can actually do. So we can do them, and you can set them on menus and toolbars, so you can pass down the style, say, for a dimension, but say, change the colour and things like that. So rather than have lots of extra different styles, you can do them much more easily and just have 1 or 2 styles and just use the overrides. And the same with leaders, they have the same thing, overrides and things on toolbars. Now these will be demonstrated by Lane, I think it's tomorrow in, oops, that's probably not 4, it's probably about session 8 tomorrow, and with some other things to show you. It's easier to show it to you. There's a new thing called View Favourites. There's a little star on there now. If you click on that, it says there's View Favourites, and they're there for each of the view types. And what it does, it actually takes a list of everything on your screen, on the view, and you go and turn things, toggle things on and off and save it away, which means you can use it when you create a new view, you can apply it to a view of the same type. Also, when you create a new view, you can use a previous favourite, so all the settings for a view can be recorded in there. So you also can do it in a chain, and you also can do it in macro calls. So you could have a chain or a macro that starts up at when 12D starts up, and you could set up a whole lot of views with any sorts of things you want, because a favourite remembers all of it. And they'll also be used in plot frames. I'll discuss that tomorrow, later on today, about how they're used for these things. And there's another thing there called view positions, and what that is not all information you wanted for favourites, but things about just how the view is set up. Very nice for perspective views. We've got an iron target point. You can save that as well as a favourite with a name and call it back at any time. So it's just the view part of a favourite. So I think you'll find them quite useful. And again, they can be applied to all the views of the same type, and they'll be discussed later on today. And they'll be used quite a bit throughout the sessions. The attribute manipulator was something that came in version 11. This allows you to take virtually any properties of strings at the time and attributes and move them around. And so you might want to take the length of the string and put it into an attribute, or move this attribute from this group to another one. It was to manipulate them. It actually works with string, vertex and segment attributes and the properties of those things. So like vertex text or segment length, there's all sorts of things like that in there. And for model and project attributes. And it can create, delete them, manipulate them and so on. Again, we'll actually go through there and show it later on, and you'll find it's going to be your best friend for moving data around, because all this part of this data mining is how on earth do I get this data out? And the attribute manipulator allows you to get it into a form to pass into other systems. Because we have a very rich set of attributes. We have the string ones, and that's most people only have that. But then we have vertex and segment attributes as well. But so how do you get them through to get to other systems or bring things in from other systems? And we'll discuss that to show how it goes on. So as I say, for BIM, GIS, ADAC, all those sorts of things, if they haven't got such a rich set of attributes, the manipulator can fix them up for you. And we'll talk about that in session 5 tomorrow. There's another thing that goes with it. There's a new labelling of string attributes and properties. There was the label map file. This is a much more general one, so it can create leaders and other things as well. A lot more choices for string attributes. So again, that'll be demonstrated in the birds of a feather sessions. So it's a lot more thing for labelling things we couldn't do before. Trimeshes, they came into version 11 and meant you could look after things that folded under themselves. So it was a tin that folded under itself, or it could be used for anything, any 3D shape. So now that they're in there, we use them for all sorts of things, so you can section through them if they're closed. And the car is actually a trimesh, as well as all the things under it. There's a whole lot of extra things now that work there for trimeshes that, as I say, we're working through putting them bit by bit. So you can have vertex and segment information in a trimesh. You say, what in the hell is that all about? Well, a trimesh you would think of as just a whole lot of triangles, but when you create with apply minis and things, the actual sides of those triangles can be given from the applied mini the name of the string they came from. The actual vertices can have information from the points in your apply mini, which means a surveyor could just take a trimesh out in the field and set out from it. He doesn't need the strings and things separately. It's all there inside that super trimesh. So that's going to be very, very useful for the future. We also now can do the intersection of trimeshes in a tin. You can form those. The intersection lines of trimeshes with trimeshes, and you can contour a trimesh. The other thing you can do to build these trimeshes is if you've got planar polygons, they're ones where everything's in a plane. So all the points are in a plane, and if they all butt up to each other, you can actually create a trimesh. So that pyramid's made up of 4 triangles and a square base. So it's a very simple way of building trimeshes if you've got the geometry. And you can also split trimeshes along a string. Now, what's this one all about? Well, often you apply minis and you get a trimesh, which is your pavement. Nice, good 3D object. And then someone says, I want my volumes, or I want it chopped up to go into a BIM system every 100 metres or something like that. Well, you go, ugh. Well, in this case, you can give a change interval and a reference, and it'll split it up. So it'll split it up into those nice little pieces to go into these other systems, because most of these other systems can't do that sort of thing. So you can split up, and it's great whenever they say to you, I want to do some 4D work, i.e. I want to build before you build, well then you've got to put the little pieces in bit by bit. So this is a great way of doing it. I must admit for roads, I don't know about you, I've never seen anyone do the pavement before they do the subgrade underneath. So I'm not certain if there's build before you build, it's all that good for roads, but for things like buildings, that's great. But if you need that data, this allows you to split the things up, the trimeshes up, to bring them in and timelines and things bit by bit. So trimesh is now very fundamental, the thing we added in, so we can represent all sorts of 3D things. And you'll see them used time and time again with lots of different sessions and how to create them. Because the word object now, well, we used to think it was object orientated, now objects has just come to mean something in 3D, and that's what trimesh gives you. BIM. Yep, who knows what BIM actually is? The world's wandered around. It's got a long history. It's really for collaboration and sharing of data so people can bring it together. It's supposed to be software vendor neutral. It's supposed to have a data transfer format that's open so you can get data around. 3D visualisation was never really part of BIM. They didn't worry about that, but for a lot of people that's all it means. It's more the attributes to pass on to the future owners of the roads. They don't care what the friggin' chair looks like, they just want to know they've got one there and what type of chair it is for the future. So we're bringing a lot of data in from other systems, and this is a combination of 12D data and things from other architectural systems, and it's all BIM data. So again, a mixture of 12D and other data. A lot of this was created in 12D. This was just something in from ArchiCAD, I think, a house in ArchiCAD. But once you've got inside 12D, you can start sectioning through it, do all the sorts of things that you can do inside 12D model. And we bring this data in as tri-meshes. That was the whole idea about it. So there's a whole lot of BIM things floating around, but people didn't know we did BIM, so we've now got a BIM menu. So when people said, do we do BIM? Well, there's a menu there, you say, yes, we do BIM. So we've collected all those things in one menu, as well as them being in their other places. What's happening though with BIM is you want to be able to design in 3D solids, inspect the design in 3D, you want to have all the metadata with it, and so on. But what people are realising finally is that for civil data, all BIM was for buildings. And they had this interesting idea, you put 0, 0 on the left-hand corner and away you go. You don't have big coordinates. Well, I've never heard of a job in Australia where we don't use something like MGA and big coordinates. So basically, we are now talking about civil BIM. So it's actually totally different to a building system, which has just got some local coordinate system and doesn't know about scale factors and things. So civil BIM, it's large scale, needs to be in a map projection, something like MGA. You can't just use a local 0, 0. The coordinates are large. The model, you're going to use 3D solids in there, and you won't be able to inspect it all in 3D, and you're going to store and process the metadata. That's what you want to do in a civil BIM. And when the civil IFC standards come along, you won't be able to use them to pass data backwards and forwards. They don't exist. I'm on the committee for IFC alignment, the international committee. I'm on the ones for roads. I'm on the ones for rail and whatever. They don't actually exist. They'll be coming out in the next few years. So be very careful when people talk about BIM systems. But the thing is, 12D model is already, it's got all that. We've got it today, and we've got 12D XML, which is open, everyone can use it to get data in and out. So that's the big challenge that the whole BIM world's going through, is civil BIM. How do we bring that data together? And there'll be a lot coming out of that over the next 12 months from some of our committees. So you'll see many examples of BIM in here, and Tony Ingle in particular from EXDS, he'll be giving a talk in the last session today, looking at things in BIM, now that people are starting to understand what BIM really is. ADAC. What's this all about? A whole lot of councils here in Queensland, and now it's gone Australia, got together and said it'd be nice to have something common for all our assets and metadata. Here's these words, you get metadata, attributes and so on. And they're going to have an XML data transfer format. So it's going to cover both as constructed and design of assets, and they're going to make that format open to everybody. And that's the big thing about ADAC. It's open to everybody, it's well defined, you don't have to sign up to a private consortium, you can actually use it. So they actually provided the schema, the guidelines for the assets, and each authority then gave a bit more information about which assets and things they particularly wanted. So basically ADAC is there so that once one can read and write it, anyone can pass the data around. They don't have to know anything more. And that's the whole thing of open, that's the whole idea of BIM. So it is actually a civil BIM system. It has been. Anyone who gets in to use ADAC, they're already using BIM. And for any organisation like a council who's using ADAC, they're on the way to understanding how to use a proper BIM systems. It's supported by actually all the major vendors, ourselves and FME for data transfer, people like Esri, they also support it now, so any data can be written from one to the other. So we continue to enhance what we do with the ADAC, and this will actually be done in a number of the different birds of a feathers. And of course the attribute manipulators, they're used quite a bit. But the boys will talk about that, as say, in there, and there's actually a talk this afternoon on it as well from one of the councils. So we'll be discussing ADAC a lot more because it's a great example of BIM in action, because there aren't that many BIM systems that are really working today. Three waters. We stole this name from our Kiwi friends. Thank you, Lane. It's basically saying there's the three types of water: drainage, one doing TD, the sewer or foul water, and water supply. They're what's known as the three waters. So we'll use that terminology for the three of them. For the Drainage 1D, there's a whole lot of things coming along in the Drainage 1D. Rob's going to be talking about the birds of a feather, his Drainage.4d Editor, rather than using a text editor. a whole lot of way of scanning through your data to get pits and pipe types so you don't have to type them in. Areas where you want the number of decimal places to be fixed in reports and in calculations rather than to end decimal places. Things for pipe grading, some extra options. Being able to create pits and pipes and things from data you've got in there, and also have rectangular manholes as well as round manholes. These things will be discussed in the birds of a feather. There's a whole lot of additional custom pipe shapes that you can use in there for analysis. The EPA SWMM Hydrology, that's one that's used a fair bit that's actually in there now. You can have KU drop on section views. When I did the what's new, I was told, oh yes, that's in there. It took the guys then 2 more weeks to actually getting it working. They slaved away every day. So sometimes you don't believe programmers, but it's definitely in there now. You can have basin infiltration types defined in your hydro file. The 2D drainage, the Roadflow, now that's one that a lot of people are using. It's a quick way of getting into 2D analysis. And I think there was a bit of announcements we sort of said may be coming on that you'll be able to use this thing with about 30,000 cells as part of 12D drainage without paying any extra money. There's a whole lot of extra things with minimal channel depth to make better modelling. And there's a great one that Rob's been working on so you can see those grids, what they're actually doing, so you can actually see why the water's going in a certain way when these things are modelled as grids. Again, they'll all be in the birds of a feather, and a whole lot more things with result files. Extra string types for modelling things for the 2D, and a whole lot of results to show as well. And things like dam breaks, which we can now handle. So that's a whole lot of stuff you'll see in the drainage side. The dynamic water supply, this is actually a new one. It's got hydraulic analysis and water quality behaviour of pressurised pipe networks, basically. So that's the third one we haven't handled before. So it does a whole lot of work, periods. It's got pipes, junctions, pumps, valves, storage tank and reservoirs. So basically those things added together. And you can track a whole lot of things in there. So it's quite complete already and produces, again, a whole lot of the graphs like we do for the dynamic drainage. So that's all there available. And I know you're going to have lots of things to ask. And Jeff Thompson will actually, the Birds of a Feather session 3 today, he'll actually be going through that in quite detail in the 3 waters. But he'll also be talking tomorrow just to give a summary in this room to everybody. So that's a whole new module for people. Point clouds. Point clouds, great things. You look at that and think that's fantastic, but it's a whole lot of friggin' points, which is 0 dimension, don't give you much information. But more and more, we're doing a lot more with them as people start to really try and get data out of them. So there's a whole lot of different things in for point clouds, new things we can read. There's a whole lot of things for managing them with categories, and you can select categories if they've got them in there. You're able to set categories. You can actually delete and undelete points in the point cloud. So there's a whole lot of extra stuff in there. You can drape them against strings. What do we mean by that? Well, if you've just got a 2D string, you can say drape it onto your point cloud, so get Z values from the point clouds. There's another one there we can say, here's a string I've got in 3D, grab me the point clouds that are around it. So I'll zip through the point cloud. So for QA and things, you can pull out data. If you're supposed to have a road, and here's my centre line, say, or the line, how close was that data to it? Well, you can actually drive it through, get the data in the point cloud, and actually can do comparisons and things. Alan will actually be talking about that one, the point cloud. So that's the one for getting stuff out. And I think you're going to give a live demonstration, Alan? Where's that? Yeah, right, yeah. We all know what goes wrong with those sometimes. So there's a lot of things. Advanced tadpoles, I won't say too much of these. There's cut and fill marks. They, again, will be demonstrated. People are complaining about some things we couldn't do with them. They wanted more flexibility. Well, I think you virtually can do anything with these tadpoles now. So they'll be done in the design session. We'll go through that in quite a lot of detail. Multi-page plot sheet. This one, we had plot sheets in version 11. This is a new one. This actually allows you to have a whole lot of mixtures of some plan views, some selection of cross sections and long sections on it. And you can have a lot of different pages to it. And it actually has a way you can quick draw, so you can actually have a bit of a preview as you're doing it, what's actually in it to see what it's like. So they'll actually go on through that again. Lane will be showing that in his section tomorrow. So I think I lied here again. It's tomorrow, isn't it, Lane? Yeah, it's tomorrow. It's in session 8. So he'll be going through that as well. PDFs. Create a bit of a problem here. In the version 11, you can actually read in a PDF and pull out the vectors and the text in it. I don't know how many of you use that, but a lot of people never realised that inside a PDF file, all that data is sitting in there, which means someone can pull it out, which you can do with 12D, with version 11. So we've introduced in version 12 a PDF option which allows you not to plot the vectors and text, but all you put out is a raster of it. So those who don't want to hand their data over to a third party, you can just put it out as just an image rather than the vectors and text in there. With the multi-page plot sheet, you can actually plot the pages to one PDF file. So you can got it there as separate pages in the one PDF file. And there's also now an option in there to combine a whole list of PDFs into one PDF file. And it's got wildcards and things on. So if you've got a whole lot of long sections and cross sections, you can stick them in there with wildcards, and it'll then combine them into pages of the one PDF file. There's a whole heap of extra plotting parameters in there. Drainage, you can have some, whole lot of cuts, extra things in cuts. One that you will be interested in is that when you have cuts and you could label them, it never looked worried about the staggers. So if you tried to stick them down in some boxes down below, they wouldn't stagger. You can now actually say, I want them to stagger, so you can put them down in the boxes. You can have grids on long sections and cross sections. You can label strings in the corridors. When you see your strings in the corridors, you can now do a whole lot of labelling for them. So all sorts of things you can do, the change for long sections or the offset of those strings in the corridor, heights of them, minimum, maximum heights, diameter of those pipes and things in the corridor, coordinates from them, and you can give them names, models and stuff like that. So there's a whole lot of extra stuff for that corridor stuff you can now label, and you can put symbols on them as well. With the long sections, you can have, say I want a fixed height, which will then put you into auto datum breaks. That's all there in the long section plotting. Also with the cross sections, there's a whole way controlling uprights. Before you could only have uprights where there were points in your cross section. You can actually turn them on, they're on the primary string. But you now can have user-defined intervals, so you can give it, it's very good for natural surface cross sections. But you can also turn one off and not the other. You can have start and end of primary string. You can go out in the extension area and the left and right extension area. So you can now put things right to the outside your plot, out into the extension areas as well. And again, with the cross sections where you've got labelling points along the cross section, they can be staggered too, so you can stick them down the boxes if you so wish. And we'll be going through those in each of the birds of a feather a bit more. E-plan, just got to watch the time here. New Zealand, this is where you put in cadastral. New Zealand did it ages ago. They wonder why we're so dumb here. But we're getting there. It's now being done in Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland for dispositive plans. It's not going as quickly as the governments would like. I think you guys are all holding back a bit, but it is happening. And we've put them into New South Wales and Queensland. We've had them done. Victoria's a little bit further off. So if you're into that, we'll be doing that in the session 10 on Tuesday, going through E-Plan. All surveyors in the East Coast will be forced to do that over the next 5 years or so. Volumes, whole lot of extra things in volumes. A lot of the things we've got start and end changes, and you can selecting things. Trimesh volumes are in there in areas, and you can work out volumes along a string for trimeshes. So where I said you could chop them up, you can also get volumes out without chopping it up. Chains, heaps of things on chains, just chains, all sorts of things. Chains become used by virtually everybody, and we'll be going through those in the survey and the birds of a feather for design, a lot more detail on the chains. Macro calls, yep, there's heaps of those in there as well, so you name it, there's macro calls. We're going through a lot of places to put in XML reports. They'll actually customise things and make up your own reports, although most people then seem to wonder how to do them, although everyone asks for XML reports. But we've been going through a lot of the options, and we have got the panels, so you can actually say, I want it to be legacy as it is now, or an XML. So we haven't killed all your existing ones. So that's the idea, that you can have both available, but bit by bit, so that'd be a legacy, and that'd be maybe an XML version of it, in this case, an HTML file. So we've been working through there, all the end area volumes we've done, all the section ones, the exact volumes, they've got the XML reports in there for them. Trimeshes, number of those are XML reports. That means you can start writing your own. And a few others, bit by bit, we're working through them. So just let us know if there's one you want to be an XML report, because we'll do them in the order. We've got some reports. We do them bit by bit. Tunnels and structures, again, they'll be discussed in both the design and the survey BOF, birds of a feather. We had before the traditional centerline definition, but now you can do them in snippets and MTF as well. So you can do your tunnel design all in your MTS, where the other one was just like doing profiles. And you can go crazy with them, We'll probably see an example of that later on today. Some nods, yep. There's a whole lot of options to create them and actually use them in all sorts of ways. You can export the profile definitions. You can say, here's a definition I've got of a Trimesh tunnel. What's the section through it at any point? Stuff like that. And again, we'll be going through those in the next couple of days. Heaps of things in survey, 12D field pickup and set out, least squares, a lot of extra things. I'll be going through these in the birds of a feather. So a lot of stuff you can put in existing networks and show them. You can extract the adjusted points to a model, which you couldn't do before. These set out, again, a lot of stuff on additional setup parameters. There seem to be a lot of extra attributes going into the setup and the pickup that people want. Every time more people use it, they want more things in there. And most of the options, a number of the ones, I'll just check on Mick, I changed it here. A lot that have tins now support tri-meshes as well. I did say all once before, but it's now most. And there's a new menu for seeing the user values. Measurement rounds, again, we've continued to work on that quite a bit, so it has been improved quite a bit for 12. Pickup, big icons coming into these sorts of places, and a lot of things to set up for that, and we'll discuss these in the birds of a feather as well for you. And for the 12D field tunnel, again, a whole lot of new ways of doing it, and there'll be talks to go through it. The GPS is just a last final bit here on things. Any 12D field, it says anything that's a GPS that uses a standard NEMA string we support. So that's virtually all of the GPSs. But with the instruments, for V9 we brought in Leica Robotics, V10 the Topcon and compatible Sockias, V10 the continuous Leica ones we brought in as well, V11 we brought in the Cytec XP3 series. They're sort of Trimbles, but they don't call them Trimbles, but that's sort of what it is. And we also did the Leica MS50 scan robotics. For 12, we've actually then done the MS60 scanners, and there's a whole lot of face scanning options which will be mentioned later for them. And again, they'll be mentioned in the talks. We'll go through them for you. And the new thing we have got in there is a new Trimble connection. Just the final thing. Basically, this means for all the S-series instruments, as we test them, you should be able to talk to them. There's 6 and X8 we've definitely looked at. They seem to work quite well. This is using 12D field. You can use a cable, direct Bluetooth or serial radio, and any tablet with Windows 7 or above. So it's not restricted like the other Trimble one where you have to use one of their not so good tablets. They didn't have a very good resolution. They couldn't use them in daylight. So you can use your Panasonics and things like this. So it's actually open. We can run it on anything for your S6s and S8s. And everything's there managed just like our other 12D fields.